Today I want to explore my shame regarding my admission to my mental understanding and alignment of esoteric topics and practices. I spent many years focused on logical, technical, and mathematical perspectives. I partly studied mathematics as an adolescent. I studied computer science in college. I studied machine learning as a master's degree. And my mind, I believe, has led the way, or at least has had a very prominent voice in my life for a long time. And relatively lately I realized that many assumptions and many beliefs that my mind held to be true, or that at least it pretended to be true, are not valid anymore. They have become obsolete. And I want to share part of my story about how that happened. I was working in the office at Google back in 2016. And I had not allowed myself to express myself artistically or creatively, or to release the emotional side of myself for decades, at least since I was a child, and certainly not fully. And I remember I was programming, and I was listening to some music. A friend of mine sent me a Daft Punk track called One More Time. So I was listening to it, just so. I began bobbing my head over to it, standing on my standing desk. And then, in a flash, in instantaneous flash, it just hit me like my body knew so certainly, I want to dance. It just knew it. It became the most important thing in that moment. I felt surprised. My mind certainly felt surprised, but I knew the certainty of it. And I went and searched for events online that were happening at that point, close to Mountain View. I looked for some events at that very moment, meetup.com, and I found an event, Movement Medicine, happening that very night, Wednesday night. And it immediately felt like, yes, this is what I want to do. Unexpected, spontaneous desire. And so that night I went to that event. I remember thinking when I went inside, whenever I saw any kind of esoteric symbology or anything that seemed hippie-ish, energetic, healing-ish, my mind would become judgmental and would become critical, attempting to find flaws. The critical mind is somewhat addicted to finding flaws in the patterns around it. looking for fallacies, which can be quite useful, but it can also be quite limiting in one's growth and development. So I went into the event and I followed it. The music was good, the DJ was good, and the exercises asked us to tune into our bodies and to allow the music to move our bodies through its movement, through its expression, through its truth. I don't quite remember whether I felt anything in the tuning, but what I knew was that my body felt so happy. It felt so liberated. It felt like it felt like it had awoken after decades of not having breathed, of having been suffocated, and then suddenly it was like begging and saying, yes, 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 more, please, please, more. I remember feeling like my perspective had just been opened completely and realizing, yes, I want more of this. Where do I find more of this? And I found there were more such events in the area. There was ecstatic dance happening, and someone said, yeah, it happens every Thursday over there. I said, where? So they told me address, and then I began going to these events. One by one. And every time I went, it felt amazing. It felt like liberating. It felt like there was all this pent-up energy inside that had not been let out for a long time. And then suddenly, it was allowed. And I began to feel my body a little, to listen to it a little, because I began to realize that there were many movements that my body actually was capable of doing and that it wanted to do naturally, and that I had been repressing it for decades in my life. And I did not want to do that anymore, because I knew that it felt so good, it felt so natural to allow the body to do its thing. And I recognized it at that time that the body has its own impulses. It has its own life and intentions that are not the same as the one that I consciously thought. And that was quite eye-opening for me, because it was the first step for me to realize, I am more than I thought I was. I am more than this mind and this consciousness that I am. This body of mine also has life and impulses, and I would do well to listen to it so that it can move and release what it has inside. The next year, I moved from California to Zurich. And I remember the first thing I did when I went to the city in Zurich is I realized, if I'm moving here, I want to find a similar place to dance. I just knew how important that was. And, someone's coming in. Pause. Go back and take the key. Oh, yeah. Continuation. On pause. So I moved to Zurich, and I knew that I wanted to dance because I realized it had become one of my passions in a short half a year. My body's passions for sure. And at this time, it was still sort of a half secret for me. It wasn't something that I would tell any of my friends or workmates or any people that I knew around me. It was sort of a secret that I held, even though I wasn't actually actively trying to keep it hidden, but I wouldn't talk about it. Because dancing, the concept of dancing, the concept of emotional expression, of allowing what's inside to come out, clashed against the stereotypical masculinity that I was ingrained with when I was raised. When I was raised, I was ingrained, perhaps unconsciously and unintentionally, with the correlation that masculinity involves willpower, strength, lack of weakness, non-display of weakness, perhaps more prominently, not even just not being weak, but not showing that one is weak. And certainly not with expression of emotions. There was even masculinity involved, and almost rejection of emotions, as in assuming that yes, they are there, and we can use them sometimes, but for the most part, they should be kept. Cast far apart. They were delegated to a second degree after the mind and the willpower. And so this concept of dance, of emotional expression, of emotional exploration, emotional, yes, because it was my body just wanting to express through emotions and through simply vital impulses. It clashed. And so I kept it as a kind of a secret for myself. But so I came to Zurich and I found this dance event with the dancer Gisela Rocha. That was the first thing I did. I think I came on a Monday and I went to her class on Tuesday to try it out. And I remember, and it was more of a guided event. And so I went there, and whereas the ecstatic dance and movement medicine events were somewhat just kind of like music and a little bit of a guidance, but not much happening, these classes with Gisela Rocha there was some more structure, there was some more guidance happening. And part of me resented that, or rejected that. Part of me did not want to give in to authority. But I realized there was really good energy and intention there, so I saw that was a good place to be, so I kept going. And then I moved to Zurich. Then in Zurich, I continued going to these dance events, and I realized that the guidance that she was offering had more value than I originally thought. Quite a lot more. Because although the free movement in ecstatic dance and movement medicine allows one to express, to release these tensions, to be as one is, there there may or may not be conscious exploration of what is happening inside. What are the causes of these tensions? Where are all of these impulses coming from? What is their nature? What is their relationship to us? I had not realized, I had not made a conscious link that these tensions and impulses and energies within had a relationship, very often a direct relationship, with events in my world, in the external world, with my emotions, with my sense of being, with my sense of health, with the patterns of behavior that I took, with the needs that I have, with the lacks that I felt, with the emotions, the envies and prides and greeds and shames and fears that I had. I had not realized that at all. And then through dance, I found that many concepts that are thought of as abstract often in life, topics such as one needs to have balance in life. One needs to balance between spending time with people and spending time with oneself, for example. There's the concept of balance, but it's this abstract concept that one can make about anything. People talk about work-life balance, or about balancing the things one eats and such. And then in dance, I realized that, or I was actually guided into realizing that balance is a physical concept that one can feel within one's body if one explores it. And that falling into imbalance occurs via the same dynamics in the physical body as in the outside exterior world, as in all these abstract concepts. It's the same essential concept, and the motives through which it falls into imbalance, or the methods via which we can find our center back again, are the same, whether they be in the physical body or in the external world. And that's just one concept. There is balance, there is containment, relationship, direction, flow, continuity, many concepts. And I began realizing all of these have a direct relationship with the body. What I thought of before as this bag, this heavy bag that carries me around and that I would very often would rather do without, carries much more information and potential than I had ever given it credit for. That was quite enlightening. It was a gradual understanding of that. And it created a link in my mind of the real, true, grounded link that there is between the physical world of events, of patterns, of behaviors, of things that actually interest this being in my body, my human body, my emotions, how I feel, what I think, with these abstract concepts that had always been very high in the air, and I had not been able to grasp before. But so I realized, oh, there is a link, a tangible, palpable link, explorable link between the physical and the abstract. That was a powerful link. Because in my lifetime, I've always been curious about esoteric topics. I dabbled a little bit into reading what astrology says. I've dabbled a bit into reading what different religions talk about Hinduism, somewhat about on Christianity, a little bit on, not too much, about Judaism. Not too much about Judaism. But I had realized that many of the interpretations of these religions were crude, I would say them. Like, as I said, my mind can be pretty critical, and it very quickly found, I would say, flaws, fallacies with many interpretations that I saw, especially like in widespread mass organized religion, where they would say, oh, the thing to do is to this. You should eat meat, or you should not eat meat, or you do not eat meat in these times, or you do not steal, do not murder. And you could say, yeah, there's logic to that, but that's just more of a that's just recommended behavior for cohabitation and to find peace in cohabitation. It's not so much founded on something true esoteric, because I have the impression that all of us human beings have an inkling that there is something that transcends this physical reality. To me, it's axiomatic. It requires no explanation, it requires no proof, no evidence. Because rank materialism, the belief that everything is just stuff and that life is almost an illusion, is is denied by our very same experience. What is the nature of, what is the role of experience or of consciousness in an enormous Rube Goldberg machine like the one that rank materialism induces the universe to be? Consciousness has no role. There's nothing to, there's no, the consciousness is, there's no need for consciousness in a Rube Goldberg universe. As such, consciousness is another element. It's an element outside of the rankly materialistic physical universe. So I've always had that inkling, and yet I've always had the fear of contradicting the mainstream belief, of the masses that we are in right now, that science is right. What science says is right. Oh, the scientists say this? Okay, that's the truth. Okay, scientists say that? That's the truth. Oh, there's another black hole. Oh, black holes are like this. Oh, that's the truth. Oh, this medicine will do you well. Put it in there and you will do well. Okay, so I put the injection. I take the pill. They are... What is it? It's actually, to me, bowing down to an authority. It's bowing down to an authority that one does not understand fully for the masses. And actually for almost everyone, because there is not one single human being who understands the whole of science. And probably there cannot be, because science as a widespread general field often contradicts itself. And it's very natural, because science is an exploration of the universe in its infinite possible facets and threads. And very often the explorers, the scientific explorers, also called scientists, make mistakes. Because humans make mistakes because we sometimes get distracted. And that's common. However, the dogmatic approach that rank materialism has induced upon many of our lives, I believe, has had a detrimental effect because it denies that axiomatic instinctual knowledge of all of us that we transcend matter. It's just obvious. It is the evidence is in our own thinking. The evidence is in our own experience. And dogmatic, any dogma, leads to falsehood and illusion. I've detracted quite off topic. What do I mean? Oh, yes. Well, I have had fear of of saying something against that current, as probably many of us have had it. And yes, I did not want to be criticized. I was ashamed that I would see people who claimed of energy work and esoteric realms, or many people involved in esoteric topics can be very dogmatic as well. The point is, any field can fall into dogma. But it's important to be able to observe any field and extract from it the original truth from whence it came. Because everything in the world has a cause. And whether that cause is conceptually aligned with its effect or not, that is fairly inconsequential, but everything has traces of where it came from. And so what I've come to realize in the last years is that many of these esoteric topics and knowledges and teachings and different truths, different esoteric statements that people have talked about have an essential truth within them. And it's time to allow ourselves to explore them. I don't mean believe them directly. I mean allow their possibility and release this authority that we have given so often to dogmatic science, and really to everything else. I would include authorities to governments and to stereotypes and conflicts that we have been raised with. But let's focus right now on the dogmas of materialistic science, because it's so widespread that what is widespread is the shame. The shame of being able to say, yes, the esoteric, there is truth in the esoteric realms. What people call magic has truth to it. There is an essence of truth that one can learn from and that one can grow and develop through if one allows it. But it does require one to explore I'll try to continue on with my narration. Look, bringing it back. So after I found through dance that I had that there was this physical link, I thought, okay, this is cool. Well, and I began thinking, well, maybe there are other links around. What other things can I associate with between the abstract or esoteric or spiritual with the physical? And what did I find? 2017, 2018, 2019. I found a few things actually. In 2018, I found song. I began to sing, and I realized that, oh, there's something in my body also that wants to to speak, to say, to sing. And there was something to be said. And that also showed me other pieces of myself. And I even observed in others how, as I was going through these singing circles and other dancing circles, I saw other people, and I realized that they were very into the energetic and spiritual and esoteric worlds. And I remember always seeing them, at the beginning, I would see them with always this inkling of mistrust. Because my mind was continued to be critical. Actually, I believe it still continues to be critical. It's still looking for possible flaws where it can fall back again into the certainty of dogmatic materialism. But I remember I had this built-in, like, inherited pride that I am better because I do not submit my beliefs to these esoteric realms. The problem with an issue with dogmas is that people in each dogma often see people in other fields as dogmatic themselves. As in, oh, they are enclosed in this dogma. And the people that are dogmatic in this field see everyone around this field as, oh, they're dogmatic in this field. Like, just as so happens with political parties. If a person does not align with my form of thinking, then the accusational part of us, the competitive parts of us, which is almost I believe it comes from an animalistic point of us, kind of like pushes them mentally into all the other side, at the dogmatic extreme side of the spectrum, because then they may have more evidence to reject them. And in a manner of competition. But it's really important to realize that we are doing it, whether we are doing it, because we humans, most of us humans, have many unconscious patterns within. And no one can really come and put light into them, and by light I mean understanding and knowledge about them. No one can come and know them except ourselves. And as long as we have all these unconscious patterns that are moving us, that are keeping us reacting from one event to another, from one conflict to another, from one stress to another, we're not free. And we are truly slaves to our own compulsions. Whether they be compulsions of competition, or of fear, or of anger, or of need, of dependencies, of addictions. all of our unconscious patterns keep us acting unconsciously. And while we act unconsciously, it is not really us. And we do not know ourselves. Coming back to the narration. Yeah, so sometimes I would feel this pride of I am better because you're dogmatic, because you believe in these things. Me myself not seeing what I do, what were my assumptions that I did not state out explicitly to myself. Then in 2019, I found a friend, and she told me about this event called ISTA, the International School of Temple Arts. And she showed me a webpage. I don't remember, it said spiritual, sexual, shamanic experience. And many parts of me went, oh. He was very attracted by that. Partly because it was spiritual, somewhat by the shamanic, but what it really was interesting was the sexual part. Because at that time, I had severe sexual and emotional dysfunction, I would say. I had a great deal of lack. I felt much lack. I felt very inadequate in relation to other people, particularly in a sexual and romantic relation. My face looks really dark from one side. Let's see if I can help it by turning on the light. Maybe? So I saw that event, and I thought, that event looks like it will have a lot of naked people. And a lot of naked people probably means a lot of naked women. Yes, I want to go there. That was it. I'm sure that was like the bulk of my reasoning. The spiritual and shamanic, yeah, sure, maybe I can learn something about that. Great, but I wanted to see the naked women. And more. I wanted to go meet women. I wanted to go have sex. I wanted to go explore the sexual part of myself, which also had been very repressed up until that point. So I went to ISTA. I went to ISTA, and yes, there were many naked people, including myself. And I really tried to go and have sex. And I really tried to make connections. And the farther I went on these events, and the farther that I saw that over and over again I would engage myself in some kind of pre-sexual, pre-romantic relationship and find myself tripping over myself over and over and over in different ways, I realized the point of all this is not really the sexual itself. I mean, that's where the focus of my desire was, perhaps, or how it was manifested. But I was able to see the core of this is emotional. It's emotions that I have not seen, I have not observed in a long time. Actually, I have not allowed myself to see because of the same reasoning that I was talking about before during the dance event. That I had correlated masculinity with not displaying my own emotions, with not displaying the real self, but with producing an image of someone who is dependable, self-sufficient, strong, certainly not weak. And so any discomfort or any signal from my emotions saying, hey, there's a problem, hey, I'm sad, hey, I'm angry, hey, I'm shameful, I would take the pattern, as I'm sure many of us humans do, of just pushing it down somewhere in my being, pushing it down. The problem with pushing an emotion, see, is that so many people have no concept that pushing down emotions literally means pushing down emotions. It literally means storing them somewhere in the body and keeping them there. Neither do they know that emotions do not go away by themselves. Many people do not know that the body is an excellent storage device, memory device of so many emotions, of so many sensations. And when an emotion is not processed, when there's a fear and I feel it and I say, oh, I do not want to express this fear right now because it would display weakness, like I push it down, it gets pushed down and it stays there waiting to be processed, waiting for another chance to be felt and processed. Because the way this life works, this human life works, as far as I've understood it, is we encounter experiences in our life, and these experiences gives us information, and our role is to process this information in order to understand further ourselves and the world more and more. That is our role. We are information processors. We are giving events, we are giving experiences, and then we learn some things we learn, and we take what we like and we reject what we don't like. But the emotions that we feel, they are part of us. They are real. And many are comfortable and many are uncomfortable. And we have a tendency to push down the uncomfortable and never see them again. And then they become litter. They become muck. They become gunk in our channels, in our pipes. If it becomes too much, they overfill our storage reservoirs, our etheric emotional storage reservoirs, where we can hold all of these emotions, and our body has an amazing capacity to store these things. But the way I've seen it, the way I understand it, it is limited. And the more gunk is stored, there is like waste, it's toxicities, it is emotional toxicities, this will manifest as physical toxicities. And it eventually impacts our health. And there are many people who could find evidence for this in how people treat addictions, for example. Addictions not being truly not being only truly a physiological symptom, but actually being highly based on emotional lack, on looking for connection. There's a look for connection. There's a look for connection, and if it becomes pathological and acute, then the reaction of the system is to just look for something that will apparently fill in that need, fill in that lack that we feel, that lack of connection, even if it's just for a little bit, oh, it feels good, just a little bit, but not truly nourishing us with connection. Like feeding malnourished people with sugar. Anyway, so what I discovered at ISTA was that my emotions were a storehouse of slime, gunk, just waste, toxic waste that had been the result of fermented, repressed emotions. A lot of sadness, a lot of fear, a lot of feeling of rejection, a feeling of inadequacy, stuck in there, unable to be expressed by my own filters of keeping things inside because, oh, I'm masculine, oh, my masculinity is my identity. I cannot not be masculine. With a false assumption, of course, that my masculinity, that's what it induced. At this moment, I do not deny my masculinity, yet I also do not deny my femininity. And that's one of the things that that is explored at ISTA, how all these polarities really are present in all of us. And the more that we deny them, the more that we do not allow the flow through us, the flow that naturally wishes to flow in the system to keep a healthy balance. It's as if we had tons and tons of sewage stored in our bodies, but we did not want to take the work of treating this water with a water treatment plant so that it could again be recycled and reused in the rest of their system. And our bodies, our beings naturally have these water treatment plants, these treatment methods through which to cleanse, purify, express, release all these tensions and emotions and wastes that we accumulate in life. They do. They are uncomfortable. They simply are uncomfortable. Like crying. Like yelling. like the admission of weakness, the admission of vulnerability. In essence, it is simply truth. If we see ourselves in the truth of what we are, then everything can be revealed. Everything that we are. All these gunky patterns and unconscious emotions and things that we are afraid of. For example, so many things that we believe are, oh, that's bad in the world. No, I'm not going to get together with this. No, I'm not going together with that. For example, the relationship that I had with the concept of homosexuality. I grew up and raised in an environment where homosexuality was condemned, maligned, ridiculed. Not quite to the point of threat of death, which is the case in some places, but to the point certainly of social condemnation, insult. It was almost equivalent to being in the lowest rung of the social ladder. This is how I learned it. And also partly, it was part also of the motive of some suffering that I had while I was growing up. Because my being, my body, is male, beard. And yet the expression of my body can be fairly feminine sometimes. And and I imagine many other people can understand it can be confusing. For the world to present one with this simplistic model of the world where one can either be on one side or on the other side, and if one is on one side and one is male, then one is masculine and one is attracted to women, and one expresses oneself masculinely and one does not express emotions. Like all the things are in the same package. It's like one needs to be like this. Or if one is a woman, I didn't experience that part in life, but I imagine that if you're a woman, then you must be feminine, and then you have to be sometimes graceful and somehow submissive as well, and cannot show too much willpower. All these social stereotypes, roles, expectations, often that we inherit. And so my relationship to homosexuality was that of acute rejection. So acute. And probably particularly so because many times I was jeered at and mocked that I was homosexual. Perhaps that I was because my body moved so fluidly at times, femininely. And so what I thought for such a long time in my life was something that I condemned, something evil in the world, something, no, keep that away from me. All that discomfort, all of that rejection, it wasn't really in the world, it was in me. It was the fear that I had inherited, absorbed, and accepted in myself that caused such uncomfortable feelings and would reject so sharply any minimal hint of homosexuality, either in myself or in others. What I want to make clear with this is that such topics are so often misunderstood, not because everything that the mainstream says is wrong, but because much of it is given, is displayed in such a simplistic manner. And the world is much, 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 so much more complex than what mainstream knowledge would have it be. So much more. And if we are to know the truth, to understand what really is, which I would argue is a pretty universal good thing to have, to know what the truth is, to understand how things work. In order to know this, we must embrace complexity. The complexity inherent in our world, even from the essential concepts that seem to be few, but the complexities in our world are real. And it's important to accept them if we are to truly understand ourselves. Coming back to the narration. Ista. I went there because I wanted to see naked women and I wanted to have sex, and I saw a lot of naked women. I kind of wanted to have sex. I tried to. I didn't have sex at the beginning. And but yet what I discovered was, oh, this is really about emotions. Oh my god, this is all about emotions. Oh, what is this? What is this? What is this? When I realized that, my focus turned into emotions, and to exploring myself emotionally, and to realizing every little action, thought, emotion that I experience has a cause. It has its source somewhere in me or through me. They indicate information to me. And it is only I who can learn to pay attention to that information and to interpret it correctly. And that I had not been doing that most of my life. And that as I began to understand the information, interpret the information correctly, and to listen to the signals that actually I was feeling, that things began to make sense. Like the whole mess that humans often have in their minds can be coalesced into a single framework of knowledge, because so much of it, or everything, one could argue, is centered upon oneself. Everything goes through oneself. It is I the knower. That all the knowledge is related to the knower. And as such, if the knower does not know the knower correctly, it may tend to misinterpret information, to have false information, to believe falsehoods, and to pollute its own knowledge base. guess that was an important turning point for me. It was another one of these major links between abstract concepts, like my emotions and my desires and my relationships with other people, particularly in the romantic and sexual aspects, but not only, also in the regular non-romantic sexual or social aspects. With the feelings in my body, I was able to take back all these blames and discomforts that I had attributed to things that were happening in the world, and oh, she doesn't want me, or that is unfair, or he did not appreciate, he like the work, he doesn't, he's a bad guy, or he mistreated me, or she does not accept me, or she does not know the value in me, or all of these things. I was able to realize, oh, wait, that's not over there. That's over here. Oh, and wait, that thing, that's not over there. That's over here. That's over. And repeat. And do this for the 10,000 stuck events that we have in our bodies. And we can realize that they are not outside. They are related to the outside. But when we blame, when we resent, when we fear, or at least when we give our power away to these emotions, then we are taking it away from ourselves. We become more and more powerless. The more we blame, and the more we reject. Especially unconsciously. So that is why my going through ISTA was very important. I also had a few experiences, especially through breath work, which brought me to an experience of, oh, wait, what am I experiencing right now? Experiences beyond the mind. Experiences of visions that I could not relate to, that brought me information, and that my mind had no clue about where they came from. It could just not place it. And it would at first take the critical position of, oh, random images that appear in my mind, of, oh, just inconsequential random bits of information that my mind makes up. My mind makes up. it up. But I experienced it, and so I know that there was something in those experiences, and I had the impulse to keep exploring it. I remember there was this other breathwork session that I attended outside of ISTA, where truly, my consciousness went further up somewhere. And and I could actually feel that I was having a conversation, like an actual dialogue with energies above. What is above? I, I wasn't sure. I was fairly familiar with the chakra system and the existence of higher planes and such. But I was always quite careful in my own mind to keep past information and my current experience separate, and to not immediately associate and assume, but rather to truly experience what I experienced independently and then draw my own conclusions consciously. This has been a key factor for myself in my life. Probably because of the criticality of my mind. It is curious and yet critical. It does not allow pollution. And so in this breathwork session, I remember going up and having some dialogue, and I have read several. Actually, it was not just that one time, but I remember so clearly the dialogues were clear. In the moment that they are happening, they are clear, and they are mostly, they are happening at an abstract level, and I can translate them into words simply because my mind is able to. But truly I can feel that the words are somewhat, that they are not the essence. The essence is something else, and I can translate what's happening into words, and what I remember I keep, and what I don't remember it's gone. But in these higher planes, there is information, and there can be had dialogues. And I would always ask myself, is this conversation, is this something else? Am I having this dialogue with myself? Who's telling me these answers? Because questions would come up. What is this? Where am I? What do I do in my life? What do I do with this problem? And then information would come up. Often very vague information, which felt frustrating at times. But true, how would I say it? Sane, and truly felt like I didn't say this. I'm not making any of this up. Continuous checking of that. I remember as I was coming down from that breathwork time event, that it felt to me like my consciousness was going down through the centers of my body. And I remember as it came down here onto my forehead, there was this star, either an 8-sided or a 10-sided star, and it was crystalline, crystal clear, shining with light, crystal clear light. And all the time my mind thought, what is this? What is this? Is this really the chakra? What? Why am I seeing this? What is this? What shape does it have? And then as it came down, I don't remember if I saw anything in the throat, but then in my heart there was something, there was this kind of thing that was opening and closing and opening and closing, and then further down there was a sun, this orange sun. And I could see how related these these symbols were to the usual chakra system that I knew about and learned about, and all the time thinking, "Am I making this up? Am I making this up? Am I visualizing these? Am I visualizing these?" And I think I continue to do this, and yet the personal evidence that I have accumulated is sufficient for me in order to, it's sufficient for me to express out loud and in public as I do now. That the esoteric knowledge holds essential truths beyond reductionist materialism. It is my most it is my strongest hypothesis of the world right now. And I continue to find it as I explore. And I am quite aware of the dangers of confirmation bias, as people call it, and any other such sampling mistakes. But yes, I realized the materialistic view of the world has no purpose to it. I mean, one can have no purpose in a world where one simply has some kind of effect and then dies and has no consequence. No, it has no consequence on the development of self. Anyway, let's see, coming back. Breathwork session. It's all the events, all the chakras in there. Great. What else happened? Oh my. So many things happened. Because you see, as one begins to pay attention to signals in the world, one begins to realize there are many, many little signals around that truly hold some information and that truly are guiding oneself. Synchronicities, serendipities, unexplained little signals of, oh, maybe I should do this, and you follow it, and then because you did that, oh, look at this person I met, oh, look at this opportunity I found, oh, look at this sign I found, which is like, oh, I found this amazing thing, like doorways open, opportunities arise from nothing, or opportunities that I thought were like, oh, I needed that, and then we're gone, and then I realized, oh, but this allowed this thing to happen, and this, I don't know where this came from, but it's amazing. Synchronicities. It's truly quite a journey, because as I've seen it, this type of journey requires the mind to understand and acknowledge and accept that it is not the supreme master of one's life. because the mind can very easily think that, oh, I'm the supreme master of my life. I understand, I know, I direct, I guide, I do, I want, I do, I strategize, I plan, I organize, I analyze. And it has great use to it. Yes, it has this world that we have made, this human world, this human organization. It's great. It is it is very useful. And yet, it is not supreme. It is not supreme. It can be a master of its own domain. And yet it needs to learn to, it needs to understand and to observe and to actually eventually know that there are planes of existence higher than itself, that there is knowledge and pathways to that knowledge that are not achieved through logic and through the usual paths of simply the physical senses, that there is further development to be had. However, that step requires that the mind allow itself the possibility that it is not the supreme master of one's life. That there is a higher part of ourselves that can guide us. And to give it a name, as many other fields of knowledge call it, it is called the intuition. One's intuition. Intuition has access to more knowledge. That the mind can be given. It can access it as well, if it is willing to listen, if it is willing to accept that that exists. But it does require a step of trust in that direction, and not to forever hide and cower. In its corner where it is king. There are other experiences I've found. What I've come to understand in recent years is that many of these esoteric fields of knowledge, they all look at the same essential truth from different perspectives, from different angles. The complexity of the worlds, especially the spiritual higher worlds, the esoteric worlds, is higher than the one we know in the physical world. So it can be difficult to grasp the enormity of all the possibilities that can occur in that world, and especially of the possible relationships that can happen. Even time and space are somehow, I wouldn't say warped, but they have different meaning, different consequences in those realms. And they affect our realms, of course. We are, as far as I've known and read, all of these realms are interpenetrating with each other. They're all around. We're just conscious of a little bit of it and can sense of it, but the other parts exist. And as such, with all this complexity, all these different esoteric fields of knowledge, they kind of try to point to different parts of it, and it's not easy to put it all into one coherent whole. Or if it is, then I haven't seen it. But yes, all these fields, astrology has effects. And my critical mind says, why would the stars over there make any influence over the person who was born at that time? I don't quite know. Not exactly. But relationships occur. These influences are true from evidence. Anecdotal evidence, probably statistical evidence if it were to actually be properly analyzed. I don't want to do it. It seems tedious. But yes, there is truth to what it says. And then there's astrology, and then I found this system called human design. And human design also bases its knowledge on the positions of the star, not the stars, of the planets. Sorry, I meant the planets before. The positions of the planets in different parts of the sky. Where were the planets when I was born? Oh, here. Okay, then you have these parts of your body activated, and then your aura is of this type, and then there's the recommendation for you is that. And I go like, what? Okay, well, why would that be? But then I go and see my life, and I I reflect upon what's been happening, and I see all the suggestions that they give me, and I realize, oh, wait, you put some very good points. My critical mind has been pulled, has been pulled and dragged for most of my way up until now in my life. But I believe that has had value itself. Because a critical mind is useful in order to know the danger of dogma and avoid it as much as possible. And even with my best efforts of avoiding dogma, I have come to the point where I want to state as openly as possible that the esoteric realities have truth to them, that they influence our world, and that many of us people hide or shield ourselves from it, mostly because we cling to authorities that turn their faces away from them. And yes, they get hidden in collective social assumption. Oh, of course there are no fairies. Of course there are no gods. Of course the stars have no influence. Fairies? Why would I have thought fairies were the truth? And then converging knowledge from very different fields of knowledge can make one see, oh, that's what they're referring to. Oh. Some people work with crystals, some people work with energy healing, some people work with divination, with stars, some people work with human design, seeing what the energy centers of the body are. Some people work with auras. Some people explore psychedelics. I explored psychedelics several times, and I also was confirmed as confirmed through my experience for myself. Not truly for external proof, but really for myself, that the esoteric realms are true. After realizing these realities, there is quite a transition in one's life. Because the priorities that seemed to lead one's life suddenly become, or gradually, they become diminished, unimportant, certainly not priorities anymore. They can be factors. I am still a human, I am still in a human body, living in a human society with all the dogmas and falsehoods and assumptions and denials that exist in it. And the realities of resources. There are resources to be obtained to nourish this body. There are relationships to be maintained. There is a flow that exists in human society. And I am still part of that flow. But in the wider scope of reality, it simply becomes a dot of importance in the superseding higher truths. So many things. Nature, in nature itself, are displayed many truths. In astrology, the practices of Tantra, human design, sacred geometry, the practice of meditation in many different ways, literature, channelings, people that channel and they say entities are coming through me and they are speaking. Higher dimensional entities messages from angelic beings. As with anything, not everything is to be simply accepted and believed. Because then one would fall into a trap of trading one imbalance for another, for the one of the opposite polarity, and that is not quite productive. Not very, anyway. No, we have two legs. And with the metaphor of the two legs, it's important to be able to stand on both of them. And not fall into one of them just because we forgot to use one. Or to the other. We have duality within us. We have spirit. We have matter. We have masculine. We have feminine. We have light and we have dark. And if we can accept that and explore ourselves truthfully in that full, wide, complete scope of what we are, then we can come to understand more of ourselves and become ready to grow further. Further where? We can go and find out. Life is not a kitchen recipe. As far as I understand it. But rather, we craft it ourselves. With the tool of ourselves, of our bodies, of our emotions, of our minds, of our knowledge, of our patterns, the patterns that have shaped us as we grew up, and with the materials of the world and of others and of energies and even from ourselves. We craft all the collective world with ourselves. And as long as we give away our power to external authorities, we cannot be free to do so truly and freely. I also wanted to speak about my motives for speaking this video. I seek to be as open as possible, as I can manage. Because my motives for this video, as I see it from myself with a critical mind, could I be sharing this because I feel that I am superior and I can prove my own knowledge and my own path to others? A demonstration of knowledge? That's not it. No. I know so little. I know inklings, but I know enough. And I just want to share it. I feel this desire to share something that is true and I do not, and that I do not see as common knowledge in the world. I want it to be known. I want to share it. Like when like when a child finds a new rock that is shaped in a very cool way, or a new mountain where I think we can play, and I go and call my friends and I say, hey, come on, guys, look what I found, That is the spirit for which I'm saying this. I'm like, hey, look at this, it's awesome, come look at this. Come look at this. Come look at this. Release that shame. Release that fear. Release that pride. I know that is present in so many of us. I didn't say it to myself because these emotions are quite dynamic and the patterns are recurring. But one can always guide oneself. So the spirit in which I tell it is, come check it out! Come check it out, it's awesome! That's it. I don't need to list all the possible motives that I did not do it for. That is the motive. And I send it with the emotion that you see on my face right now. I wish it to be heard and to be considered. As information to be possibly integrated into your life. Remember to be true to yourself. That is an ever-guiding factor. I'm glad you listened.